So, 10 men. There hasn't been a lot of newer videos or even the older footage of 10 men heroic kills, kind of explaining the strategies that people use and uh, just the normal stuff for us. I'm going to try and break it down for more of a feral off tank point of view of what I'm doing at certain moments and kind of going over our strategy at the same time because it all lines up pretty well together. It will be a long video, so I'll have the breakdown of all of the timestamps in the description below. If you have any questions, feel free to just leave a comment and will answer the question as soon as I can. So in some of these fights, it's going to be a lot of quiet, listening to music, and just getting down the strategies, calling out what's coming next. For Rhyolith is the one that we're starting with here. We're coordinating, just turning it into a circle. You only need one person to call out, one tank. So we just kind of coordinate to run around in a circle till a volcano comes out and it becomes heated. Once you have a heated volcano, you want to run over that one. You don't really want to run over volcanoes that are not active because it does give him a buff that increases damage done to the raid. So ideally, you just go in and kind of kite him around in a circle until you get the first heated volcano, then aim him towards that. A lot of the damage that is coming out here is just kind of the raid-wide AoE that he does naturally, as well as the volcanoes, but he dies pretty quick. You're just focusing on, as long as you're focusing on doing the mechanics correctly and not standing on the lines, it's not a hard fight. Going over the active volcanoes as soon as they come up, or as soon as you can, is the best thing here. We have our melee kind of swapping between the legs. When we're calling for a straight, we're going to our set sides of this is the side you're going to hit when we're going straight. This is the side that the raid lead's calling, so you just swap sides. We just have the ranged focus, the ads that are coming from the lava from the outside and the big ad, as well as the small ones that are getting picked up by the main tank. It's a lot of back and forth on this fight, so feel free just to watch and listen to anything that comes by, and then I'll come back when phase 2 starts. Alright, so here's the start of phase 2. This is where you want to rotate your raid CDs and just get the healing kind of up to par so you don't end up losing people. If you do lose a few people, it is okay because it's still doable. As long as you still have some DPS up, it's going to be fine. It's just a DPS race to the end. Alright, and for Alysrazor, we're starting it from the RP event, so it does take a little bit for the RP event to go off, so you won't be able to get a pre-pod off. If you want to, you can reset the fight, so that way you can get a pre-pot and do a little bit extra damage to Alysrazor. I don't think it's really necessary. It's a lot of kiting around and doing the mechanics of each one anyway, so waiting for the RP kind of helps you prep a little bit better to just not try and get everything out all at once, just focus on your main priorities. For this, we have our mage go up to do the most amount of damage to the boss, so the little feathers that Alysrazor drops as she does her little swipes on the ground is what you want to be picking up. And I also believe that the LA goes up as well, uh, just because two people going up just makes the fight a little bit faster. It's free damage as she's going across the middle, so try and get as much damage in as you possibly can. There will be ads that spawn on the sides. Those ads need to be kicked and focused down by your melee, and then 2 eggs will also spawn as well. The eggs are really easy to handle. You just have your tanks go full ham and just DPS them down as they're picking up the worms. Most tanks can deal with them by themselves if they're wearing the correct stuff. I opt into wearing double damage trinkets for this as a tank, just because the damage done to me is a lot less, because they are going to put a dot on you that you just need to not be healed above 50%. It falls off at 50%, and once that dot's gone, then it's an easy kill. If you're ranged and melee don't have much to do at the bottom, they can always help kill those eggs as well. You need to kill the meteors in good spots so that when Alysrazor does the firestorm, everybody is safe from the firestorm, and you just need to pay attention to where she is in the arena or around the arena. Have your 2 people come down so that they don't die as well and hide from the firestorm. But it's a lot of rinse and repeats. So you go back into your first positions, killing the ads, and then killing the hatchlings if you're a tank. Make sure everything gets kicked, interrupted, and your flyers are doing the maximum DPS on the fights that they can possibly do, as well as picking up some extra rings. It's pretty much a go-go Sonic fight if I have to put anything into it. But I will go ahead and skip a lot of this just because it's pretty much the same thing over and over again until the tornado phase. About the most important part, the third hatchling phase. So for the third hatchlings, you need to make sure you eat both of the worms, because if you leave the worms up while the firestorm's going, it could possibly kill some of your raid and cause a wipe. So focusing these down is not the priority still for the people that are your DPS, killing and interrupting the ads that are spawning on the sides. But if they do end up helping you because there's nothing else to do, then you need to make sure that you're eating the worms before it gets too low and just dies. Because avoiding the worm fire spout while the fire tornadoes are going out can be quite difficult, and you can also ignore the meteors on this part as long as nobody gets hit by them and they still split off, so just don't get hit by the splits. For the tornado phase, most of us are running in a circle, so whenever we get a tornado that passes by us, we just follow that tornado, as you can see here. But you can also get some free damage out on the boss, even as a melee. You can see some lightning bolts going out from our Ellie Shaman. I'm throwing some melees and getting my dots up. It's a free damage phase as long as you can follow the tornadoes. I would not recommend if you are not comfortable doing the tornado phase yet, so just focus on the tornadoes first. And when she is down, this is at the point where you want to be interrupting the ads. It wasn't really called out for me to do some of the interrupts. I did mess up a little bit and should have gotten some clarification. And this is also where you want to lust as soon as you get the ads to the center and get them interrupted. Burn the boss down before she gets back up is the main priority, because you get a 50% damage boost in the phase where she is not on fire. As soon as she becomes on fire, just everybody stack up, use raid cooldowns to mitigate some of the damage, and just continue DPSing down the boss until it is dead, or until she goes back up. For this, we get another air phase, so it's pretty much the same thing that I covered in the first part of this, all over again. Let your flyers get their feathers and go up. Everybody else just focuses on the ads, kill the hatchlings, and it's free loot. I'll speed up the rest of this.
I'm on my own, broken alone. I feel the rain crashing down all around this empty town. I'm searching for the lost and found, but you don't care, you're unaware. Keep moving like the scars aren't even there. It's in the air like a blazing flare.
You can see that it's not the cleanest kill, but it's still a kill, so kill a boss, easy loot. Alright, so onwards to Beth'tilac. We opt into me doing a Firefire on the boss because we have the DK up there most of the time, so I'm putting a Fairy Fire on the boss. If it misses, it misses. If not, great. Each one of the markers that are on the ground is a specific point. Square, diamond, and triangle are points where the spiders will spawn and the suicide bombers will spawn. And you want to try and pull down these ads that are on the webs as fast as possible, because if they're up there for too long, they can end up stunning and doing damage to the target that they stun. So you want to take those down as soon as possible. It's best to have multiple people who can taunt be close to the middle so that they can get those down as soon as possible. And so as long as you're controlling those ads, the drone will come out, and I'm tanking him at or close by to the yellow marker as much as possible, so that way it's a guaranteed spot for when it fixates on a person. They know they can just run to that spot and try and avoid the spiderlings. If they run to the opposite side of the spiderlings for 10 men, it's fine. But your main priority, or the off-tank's main priority, should be to take it back to that spot or close to it, just staying on the opposite side of where the spiderlings are spawning. Make sure you're focusing it and pointing it away from the raid at all times, because it does do a frontal cone that does a lot of damage. As soon as it's dead, you stack back up, use some raid cooldowns to mitigate some damage. There's a cheese method, but we don't end up doing the cheese because we don't really need it. So as the first phase goes on and on, the drones spawn faster, the spiderlings spawn faster, So it's more of a priority for the people that can taunt the dangling spiders off of the top to do that, and just have your other people just killing the ads as fast as possible. Drones need to die, but it's always the spiderlings that are hanging in first priority, then the spiders that are coming from the caves if you are on that focus, and then the drones. But if you are a person that is usually doing the taunting on the dangling spiders, those are your first priority, and then the drones. And then if it is called to help with the spiderlings, that's when you would help with the spiderlings. Most of the time, it goes back and forth of which you're targeting at that current time. But as long as you are listening to your raid leader doing the callouts, then this fight is pretty easy to deal with everything on it. Again, just make sure that you're focusing your priority target. But everything all said and done is when it's all dead on the ground and you're on your third time going up like we are here. The final phase will start after this smoldering devastation and the spits. As soon as the ads come down, then your tank can get back up, and this is the third time that we're up on the webs. For the third time on the webs, we choose not to send our extra person that normally goes up there back up, so we can get all of these excess ads down, because you can see it starts stacking up pretty quickly on the final parts, and then you can also get 2 drones, so having the extra person helping with the spiderlings, then helping with the drone, really helps your team as a whole to have no ads left over when it comes to the burn phase. But I will go ahead and speed up the video a little bit and get us to the final phase. Alright, so now that the boss is down, this is the burn phase. I'm trying to drag the ad close to the raid so that way we can get some extra cleave on it and make sure it dies, so that we can actually do the taunt swaps properly. There are multiple ways to do the taunt swaps for this. The way that we are opting to do it is when either one of us gets Widow Kiss, we're doing a taunt as soon as the debuff comes up. That way we don't have to get the extra damage that can't really be healed 100%. Ideally, you don't want a drone as you're going into this phase. So if you can kill a drone before this phase, that's great. If not, just deal with that first, then focus the boss. The longer the boss is up, the more damage that the boss does. So this is when you want to pop Lust and burn the boss down. Still taunting on the Widow's Kiss as much as possible. And again, burn before your tanks die, because as soon as your tanks die, you're probably going to die next. Alright, so for Shannox, I am on Riplim, and we have our main tank on the boss. We don't really do a pull timer for this, so we kind of just eyeball it and do the callouts live in Discord of when we're going to pull. Still want to make sure that the dogs don't go more than 80 yards apart. There is another few methods for this boss that are different strategies. We just choose to clear out a bunch of trash right here and do it right next to the road. It just seems easier for us, and we don't really care that much. Make sure that you're keeping an eye on your distance away from the boss, because you still want to try and get some resets out. And just pick a direction. When you go to kite the dogs away, just make sure you're picking a direction and getting a slow out as soon as it picks it up or right before it picks it up. That way it is a little bit slower moving towards the boss. You can utilize traps to get some resets in, or you can just use some extra cooldowns. Um, I end up using boots and just going in a circle, which is perfectly fine. But again, just making sure that you and your raid are staying within 80 yards of the boss for when everything happens. If you can get a trap reset on it, like I do here, that just guarantees a full reset for both the tank and the off tank. But you need to be making sure that you're watching both of the dog trap timers, because if they're trying to use a trap and you end up using the trap, it can mess up the fight. We have our Hunter and Ellie Shaman breaking Rage face off of whoever he targets, and just trapping as they need it. So just kind of coordinate everything and try and stay as close to the boss as you possibly can, just taking it slightly away from the spear throws every time and follow it back a little bit. But you want to try and have a slow on it as it is going towards the spear and as it is going back to the off tank. So if you have anybody that can throw a slow on it, that is the best time. As soon as it gives the spear back to the boss, throw a slow on it so that it makes it a little bit easier for your off tank to kite around and not have to use so much of their movement. The reason why we have me doing the kiting of Riplim is because I go into infected wounds for this, so I have the extra slow, and I've got 3 movements to get some easy resets, so I'm taking less damage. If you don't end up getting a reset, it's not the end of the world. Just try and get a reset on the next spear throw. But that's it, the whole boss. And it's dead. Next, we'll move on to Bale. For Bale, we're doing a single soaker strategy, meaning that you can have a Feral or a Shadow Priest soak an entire crystal at the very beginning. It's all on your tank to stay alive while the soaking is going out and making sure everybody else moves away from the crystal. You can kind of see it does get messed up a little bit there. It's still recoverable, and I do think that I actually end up taking the whole thing. We just got kind of lucky. Rotating your cooldowns on your off tank or the person that's doing the soaking is the most beneficial here. I end up rotating my own cooldowns to soak an entire one. Does get a little dicey near the end, but as long as you're doing everything correctly, it's a easy fight. We have one person doing all of the callouts for who is doing the next soak. That way, comms are clear and precise. So, the less people you have talking, the more that you can actually hear what's going on with the fight. It's a one tank fight with the way that we do it, because they are just going to be doing all of the soaking and spreading the stacks for the healers to gain theirs. It's, again, mostly on your tank to call out the externals if he needs any, and to get good rune cooldown rotation going for a DK. Other tanks can do it, it's just a little bit more difficult. They require a little bit more healing. We just opt to go the easiest route, which is a blood DK, healing themselves most of the time. And it's a pretty stationary fight. As long as the shards are getting handled correctly, it's straightforward. Again, just having one person doing all of the callouts. with all of the crystals and everything else being handled well, it should end up with you killing the boss and getting your loot for the next boss. So there are multiple different types of ways that you can do Majordomo. We opted to do a few um, slashes in Scorpion form, so you can see it's kind of stacked up here with our Disc Priest, Hunter, and Rogue standing a little bit further out, but I believe our Hunter's actually in with the group, so we can help with the stacking and the soaking, which is fine. But we have one person behind the boss and one person to the side of the boss so that they can get their concentration maxed out. And as soon as their concentration is maxed out, we end up plusting. We're going to take quite a few of the slashes. It's just up to the healers to get the raid topped back up before the next slash goes out. If the raid is not topped up before the next slash, and we might have a problem with getting him topped up, that's when you would use raid cooldowns or even swap forms. But keep in mind, every third form that he goes into, he does go into a Nidal form, temporarily stunning the raid and either doing seeds, which is a bomb on every single person, or orbs, which do a directional dot to the person that is closest to it. So that needs to be taken with care when you are soaking those orbs. For this first part, though, it's pretty straightforward. It's just a matter of using raid cooldowns again and making sure the raid is topped up. I'll go ahead and skip a bunch of this because it's a lot of the same thing over and over again. But make sure you have clear, concise comms and have only 1 to 2 people calling out things at a time, and make sure that at least one of them is your healer so that they know, hey, we need to swap forms before the slash goes out. So as you can see there, we just transitioned it to cat form. This is at the point where you want specific people to run out. Most of the time it's your ranged. I just get some extra damage out by doing a leap back into it. It's a call that needs to be made by your raid leader, and then the stacking before the jumps go out. That way it's less damage going out on the raid, and then you're just basically swapping between cat and scorpion every single time. You can see that we have the seeds now. This is the most important part. If you need to go out, then you're out. Because your range go back out, and then making sure you're stacking back up before the seeds get out of control, because if you go too far and your ranged aren't stacked up for the seeds, it can turn again and cause more issues. Transforming it too early can cause a wipe, because like the orbs will spawn, or you get seeds spawn when orbs are already out, and it will basically cause a lot of issues because it can kill somebody if they're in with the raid. It's a domino effect. If one seed explodes, and then the next seed explodes, so on and so forth. It just becomes very hairy very quickly. The way that we're doing it is that we're having it alternate between myself and the DK tank for the orbs, so we can have the maximum amount of DPS out on it. There are different ways to do this. I do it on 25-man where we have a healer do the soaking with the DK instead of myself. You just kind of go with whatever's comfortable for you and pick what's best. I'm going to get some extra stacks here, so this is kind of where you want to use extra cooldowns if you can, just so you can get the soaking done. Because you don't want to take too many stacks and then die. Because again, like I said earlier, if you get the seeds and you're soaking orbs and you die, it's a domino effect. You can kill the entire group. But as long as you're doing the stacking and the spreading correctly, called out by the raid leader or whoever feels comfortable calling it out, then it's an easy kill. Alright, now we're on to the final fight. I want to thank again Scotty J for letting me use his footage for Rag. I did want to cover a little bit of extra stuff in here, and his positioning is a lot better for what I wanted to show. So for trap placements, we're placing them on the very edge, so we never have to deal with them. As long as they are on the edge or in these circles that they're standing in right now, we almost never have to even go near them in the final phases, let alone phase 4. Um, as long as everybody's avoiding the smash and just watching their cooldown timers, like he's watching for Wrath of Rag and the trap. So when Wrath of Rag is about to go out, he tries to position himself in the correct spot, and when the trap's about to come out, he's just watching that timer, and both him and our hunter kind of place themselves on an edge best placed for the trap. So avoiding the smashes waves is their main priority, then getting the trap over to the edge is their priority, as well as not getting knocked off the edge. Getting knocked off can cause a wipe because it's hard to battle res somebody that is over the edge. But again, as long as your traps are placed really well, it shouldn't be that hard of a first phase. The phase isn't really a DPS check for the first one. It's more of a mechanics. Can you deal with these mechanics and deal with them properly? With us taking the magma traps out of the equation, then it's pretty easy. For the transitions, we have our raid lead or anybody else that can see the sides calling out which side is short and which side is long. Even though one side comes up to be in the middle, you can still get more ads on one side than you can on the other. And essentially, you want to be dealing with the transition ads as much as possible, and your off tank should be getting calls for when they actually need to reset the main tank's stacks for their debuff, so they're not taking too much dot damage for that. And for phase 2, we are all stacking up, except for the warrior and myself. You can kind of see me to the side because I am baiting off a seed to the side. The reason why I'm baiting off the seeds to the side is so I can get some extra damage out on the seeds to help mitigate a lot of the melee damage that's coming from them. But I'm also taunting the boss at the same time. So it may be a little difficult for you to get used to, but you'll see some wipes for this phase, and that is perfectly normal. You just got to make sure you're trying to do better each pull, figuring out what you're doing wrong, and then moving on. For World of Flames, you want to be away from the melee side of the boss. So as long as you are right next to where basically smashing now and outwards, jumping back and forth, you can dodge the World of Flames, trying not to get hit by it. It does a lot of damage and could possibly kill you, as well as the waves. Again, we're stacking up. We're using drums and then any type of speed boosts that you can possibly use to try and get the seeds out of the raid. And raid cooldowns every time that the seeds are about to explode. Nuke down the seeds. The seeds are the main priority for phase 2. As long as you can control the seeds, not die to them, and avoid the World of Flames, then this part of the fight is pretty easy. We are spreading to basically make it so that the ads don't get their buff, doing 25% more damage and unstunnable, unslowable, and making it a lot easier to deal with them. Avoiding the World of Flames again, and stacking up. We could do this comfortably with 2 sets of seeds. We opted to do a 3rd set just because it made the final phase a little bit smoother for us. So our 3rd seeds are coming out. We're stopping on the boss as soon as that we can see the phase 2 from Foji coming out. And we spread and go to our next spots to kill these next set of ads. Once these ads spawn, we are cleaving them down with the boss. So we're trying to push the boss and kill the ads at the same time, but we're waiting for the World of Flames as well, so we can get some extra damage so we have a shorter phase 1. That extra little bit of percentage can help you secure a kill if you're struggling in phase 3, but in phase 4 it requires a little bit more attention. Then we get a really good split here. Hammers on the right, we have one ad on the right, and a bunch of them clumped up on the left. So we're just gonna have our melee go to that one side. Our DK tank is taking the ads to the center, and we are just nuking down these Sons of Flames so that they're slow. We're not trying to kill them here. We're just slowing them so that we have more time to deal with the Scions. Because once the Scions are dead, and it's an easy game from there. They do put a debuff up that you saw Scott get here, where you have to run away from the spots because it does do damage to yourself, and if the Sons of Flame run over them, they do heal. This is one thing that you kind of want to avoid as well, trying to go the same direction as another player. It happens sometimes, but it's nothing to be too concerned about, as long as you are aware that you're going to take the extra damage and let your healers know if they are not expecting it. And for the final phase, it's a DPS race, so I'm taking the first stack of the debuff that Rag does, so that way we get more time to lust and get more DPS out. This is where you want to pop your second potions. This is where you want to do everything you possibly can while you don't have a meteor. If World of Flames comes out, do your normal thing. Just avoid the World of Flames as best as possible and try and not take any extra damage in this phase. The healers really need to focus on the main tank. So the more that you're not taking damage, the better it is. Avoiding the smashes as well. And then here we get our first meteor that spawned. It's going to be handled by our Holy Paladin. It just made it a lot easier so we can focus on DPS. There isn't a ton of healing that was really needed, as long as your tanks can get a reset when the stacks get too high. But it just requires a little bit of a call out from your main tank and your off tank, just making sure that the healers are aware. Hey, I'm going to take a little bit of damage here and make sure you're healing me. Your goal is to try and push it before the third set of meteors spawn. So on the first one, there's one. On the second one, there's two. We got lucky and only spawned the one. But if you do get two and you don't get a third, it's in good position to push the boss. Because if you get a third, then you have to deal with 4 meteors. It just gets out of control really quickly in a 10-man. For the final phase, in phase 4, I am starting tanking here so that we can have less stacks going into our main tank when we do actually need me to do the Cloudburst, because I will be doing the Cloudburst, which means I'm doing the Dread Flame and making sure that the area is clear for the raid. Here comes our first Frost Patch. Everybody stacks in the Frost Patch, just stays as close as possible. If your knockback person needs to go out of the Frost Patch for a second, it is perfectly fine. They'll take a little bit of damage, but nothing a healer can't just quick do a simple heal and get them back up to a good health percentage. First Cloudburst comes up. I got lucky on it. The Dread Flame spawned right next to Cloudburst, so I cleared the first one, and then you can see me off screen a little bit, or running off screen a little bit, getting the next sets. Our first roots are going to be taken now. Roots you need to utilize when the cast is going off. So here comes the cast. Our off tank, which is our DK. Our Unholy DK is doing the taunting and getting him in the roots so we don't get the AoE damage. And get a little bit of a pump on the boss. And then as soon as you freeze the meteor from whoever's getting it targeted, then you focus the meteor down. Don't worry about the boss when the meteor is frozen. Get that meteor out of your way so you have a clear way of dealing with Rag now and not have to worry about the meteor going back and forth. The second Dread Flame went out. I am doing a little bit of damage on the boss, trying to maximize and get us this kill. It's okay if you do this, but if you're flames are out of control, focus on flames. Like, if your Dread Flame person is not dealing with those flames, it can get out of control really quickly. The faster that they can clear it, the more space you'll have, the more time that you may have to do a little bit of extra DPS on the boss as well, which is what I'm aiming for. So as a Cloudburst person, I'm just aiming to clear them as fast as possible and get a little bit extra damage in so we can secure the kill. So there's our third trap. We are really low on Rag's health. After you hit about the fourth trap, it's pretty much a kill after that. As long as you don't have too many high stacks on the tank. If you need a tank swap so you can get a reset on it, it's perfectly okay to call that swap as long as everything else is being handled and you don't have a meteor. So here comes the fourth trap. We do end up turning the boss a little bit just so that the leg isn't in the trap. It's okay if you can DPS him down fast enough, but to play it safe, always make sure you're stunning him when the Empowered Soul Fierce goes out, just so that you can secure the kill. I don't recommend trying to get a little bit of extra damage out before the trap. But yeah, if you did this correctly, then you get all that sweet loot. I know, really long video, long-winded, just constant go, go, go mentality, but it's a lot of information to take in. So if you need to break it down into boss by boss, again, I'll leave the description of all of the timestamps for each kill and where they kind of start. So